Hello, gays, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome to another episode of the Denver Astrology Group podcast. Today is Mercury Day, Wednesday, and I am joined here today by the lovely Kate Kettelkamp.
Yep, that's me.
So August 9th from 2 to 4 p.m. at Ritual Craft School of Learning, Kate will be giving a presentation on astrology and psychedelics. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit in that regard? Like your credentials, I guess, or qualifications, if you will?
Sure, yeah. I might have one or two.
I don't have a list. You have
No. I'm Kate. Kronos Astrology is my astrology business, and I came to astrology through my grad school program in philosophy, cosmology, and consciousness through the California Institute of Integral Studies. My teachers were Richard, Tarnas, and his daughter Becca, and their view of astrology was so gorgeous and compelling that I fell in love. And
I also just love their love for J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yeah, you know? Totally.
So
yes.
To get to know Kate a little bit better, I have a couple rapid fire questions for you. You ready? You done?
Yes, I'm ready.
Preferred pronouns?
She, her.
Are you coffee or tea person?
Coffee.
Your big three?
Libra, Virgo, Taurus.
Got it. And morning person or night owl?
Morning.
Favorite color?
Pink.
Favorite planet?
Pluto.
Oh, Pluto or Saturn though?
Pluto
again. Whole sign or Placidus?
Whole sign.
And what's your favorite housing? Or house archetype?
Oh, which house is my favorite?
Mm-hmm.
Ninth.
Ninth's a good one. Favorite astrology book?
Oh, astrology book. Cosmos and Psyche.
Oh, of course, obviously. And then a philosopher you think everybody should read?
Ooh, Bergson.
A last book you couldn't put down?
I could put any book down.
Not much of a reader?
A book I couldn't put down. That is a great question. American Psycho.
Ooh, I've only ever seen the movie.
Yeah,
so
the book is amazing.
Really good though.
Yeah.
But what's currently on your playlist this summer?
Summer playlist. I've been listening to Olivia Rodrigo.
Oh, okay. Yeah, shouldn't she just drop a new album?
Yeah.
I've heard snippets, but I haven't deep dived fully into it yet.
Yeah.
I love Hayley Williams with every fiber of my being, and
For
she sounds a
sure.
little bit like her, so obviously I'm listening to it.
Yeah.
Mountains or ocean?
Ocean.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Living in Colorado.
I know.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
What kind of dogs?
Dobermans.
Ooh, cute. Introvert or extrovert?
Introvert.
And then if you could interview any astrologer, who would it be and why?
Ooh, any astrologer. Austin Coppock.
Ooh, interesting. With that, first drawing you to astrology, what really convinced you it was worth studying, seriously?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I'm a skeptical person, strong Saturn. I question everything. I was very skeptical of astrology, but then there's another part of me that is all in on magic. And I liked that astrology had a system and a structure and a pattern, and it's also full of magic and synchronicity and mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then how did, your pursuing of philosophy, cosmetology, and consciousness really become a part of your act? What's I want to major in that?
Yeah, well, actually, I feel like the program found me. I was just looking for a philosophy program. That's kind of was my first interest. I found, programs on, studying Kant and Heidegger, all of that has a bit of a boring feeling to me. But yeah, I as a Virgo rising, I'm everything has to have purpose, meaning, and this school is very eco-conscious, planetary focused of what's the big human picture. So I liked that it was philosophy with a point. And then when I found out that they had astrology, I was sold.
So what was it like studying under Richard and Becca, specifically?
Yeah, I mean, they are amazing, phenomenal teachers who are so passionate about what they do and cultivating relationships with the students. And I think their work is tremendous, and the length and the dedication and attention to detail. So both very, very inspiring people. And the view that they paint of archetypal astrology, I also I love Hellenistic and evolutionary. I'm open to all different forms of astrology, but the archetypal, I really appreciate the what Rick calls multivalence of archetypes, of specifically painting pictures with every planet of the shadow manifestations and the more illuminative manifestations, and really that range focus of if you have a Saturn Pluto transit, there are 1,000 ways that can come through. And so I love that multivalent approach, and I think it's very helpful as you are in your journey of mind and consciousness to know that there are different vibrational accesses that you can have. Basically, that there's weather but how you respond to the weather is like a major determining factor of how things will go for you.
1000%.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I love the most about Cosmos and Psyche, because like he does such a good job of explaining that point that like these things can happen and we can look through history to like look at how it's happened, but we see through history that it's all slightly different each time.
Yeah.
You know, and no matter how, like, even if everything aligns the same, there's no guarantee that the exact same thing is ever going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that strikes a personal tension that I've had with astrology and like my own psyche of really wanting control and using astrology as a tool for control. But the longer you do it, the more you realize we don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
And so it's like a path to walk and to balance kind of this what to do with this wisdom of knowing about certain patterns that might occur, but still holding space for the fact that we've never seen this astrology before. We've never been in this place in this time. Like we have no idea really. We have intuition.
Yeah. For people who have not heard these subjects really discussed together, why do you feel astrology and psychedelics kind of belong in the same conversation?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I've been trying to answer it with my dissertation for a long time now. But I think that with archetypal astrology, with astrology in general, a lot of the pattern recognition is of human psychology itself, of our projections of our own psyche onto the stars, recorded over time. So the same with psychedelics. What happens when your psyche is amplified or you're experiencing your own projections in different ways? And how does that influence your connection with the cosmos? And how does the cosmos influence your current psychic development?
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's so fun. Oh, I'm so excited to like dive into this fucking topic. I guess what surprised you most in studying those connections?
I think for me, one of the more surprising things is that this amplification factor. I think a question for me has been, you know, if you are in a psychedelic journey, can you completely transcend your astrological place and time? So say you're in your Saturn return, is there a dosage of psychedelics you can take to where you're not psychologically experiencing, like, does that belong to the ego or does that belong to your soul more holistically? Of like there's no level of transcendence that you could hit that you wouldn't still be
affected by those celestial movements.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if you find that out, let me know.
Yeah, totally.
I'm actually in my Saturn return right now. So
yes.
If I can, like, if you give me a dosage percentage that just allows me to like understand the lesson sooner, I'd love
3.8 grams a year. Blast off past Saturn.
Yeah, honestly, that's what I need in my life. I don't feel like it's honestly that. I mean, I feel like I've learned a lot of Saturn lessons throughout this, and being an astrologer definitely helps me see it.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like it's as chaotic quite yet. I haven't hit my exact return, but
day chart, night chart.
Day chart.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
Oh, I should have asked the same.
Yeah,
it should have been
night
one
chart.
of my night chart.
Yeah.
Interesting, little lunar baby.
It's a bit hard.
And you said your moon was where?
Taurus.
Ooh, and a nice little trine to the ascendant.
Yeah.
Nice. I love that for you. Well, I guess, is the goal to like explain psychedelic experiences with astrology, or to use astrology as a tool to interpret them?
Yes, that is a really, really good question.
Or both, I guess.
Yeah, I think that it's a conversation to be had. One thing that I felt really going into doing this work is that I never want to project onto other people's experiences, especially in like a space as sensitive as psychedelics, and you know
I would argue just as sensitive a space as astrology.
Exactly.
You know,
yeah.
So when you double them up, it's even like it's hypersensitivity.
Exactly. And you know, people walk into consultations and things as willing participants, but I do think that there's ethical boundaries that we hold as astrologers where you're needing to really practice this sort of integrity with, you know, what is most judicious to tell someone at this point in their journey, and are you putting ideas in their head about how things are going to go? Are they ready for that? You know, like all kinds of questions. But I think with psychedelics, that to me the stakes feel higher because they're taking these substances that increase the neuroplasticity in the brain, and so they could be more vulnerable to that influence. So for me, I prefer to look at astrology and psychedelics in terms of integration, of someone having the experience and wanting to reflect via the astrology of here are some of the themes that came up. What, like, where do we see this in my chart and in terms of my overall personal growth and development? And one surprising thing about this work is that I ran a study where I was seeing people for integration sessions after their psychedelic journeys, and a lot of people didn't want to talk about their journeys at all.
I feel like that sometimes is the case.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have some harsh self-truths that you don't really want to admit to another person.
Definitely. Yeah, and there is an intimacy about those spaces, and also like an ineffability of how would I even put that into words, and I think that's why I do feel passionate about astrology and psychedelic integration, is because when you have ineffable experiences, sometimes putting them into conceptual ideas or narrative form can feel like a diminishment of some of the powerful emotive things that you experience. But the multivalence with astrology opens that back up of you don't have to say that this was like a death rebirth experience, but if you wanted to bring in Pluto, there's so much with Pluto that's beyond just death and rebirth. Yeah, so I think that providing people poetic language, language with clusters and constellations of ideas around words can feel like more of an opening for them to be able to think about their experience and process.
Very well said. And I feel like that hits on a lot of what Moses actually just presented on. He really just constructed ethics as like, you will always influence your client with your belief system.
Yes,
so you need to definitely have like a control on how you approach things.
Yeah.
And how to like be sensitive and be in those vulnerable spaces.
I do feel that ethics is something that is maybe underdeveloped in the astrological community, because there's not rules on becoming an astrologer. You can put it in your bio and
say that you are.
Yeah, and I think for readers in general, not just astrology, it's difficult because people come in very vulnerable states. So it's extra important, I think, to be practicing ethics. And
I agree, and I think it helps with your academic background to go through all of these trials and things on an academic basis. My next question is, could you explain birth? I'm gonna say that perinatal.
Yeah.
Perinatal matrices.
Yes.
In a way that somebody with no psychology background could understand.
Okay. Yeah. Totally. So the birth perinatal matrices, or the BPMs. This is the work of Stanislav Grof, who is a pioneer in the field of consciousness and psychedelics and astrology. Grof worked with thousands of psychedelic patients, and one of the things he noticed was that there were emergent patterns for people. Experiences weren't random, but organized into these constellations of experience. And a lot of people were reliving their birth in psychedelic experience.
Interesting. There is weirdly a lot of art that reflects that.
Yes. Yeah, and it's really remarkable if you look into the studies, people would be doing, their psychedelic journey, or he developed holotropic breath work, so you could get to these states of consciousness with breath even. They could even develop bruises on their neck.
From umbilical cord chokers
exactly,
or something like that?
exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Damn.
And there were often times where he could know what happened in the birth process through what they experienced in the psychedelic process. Yeah, so there's this idea of memory and birth, and the way that scientists often think of memory is, your cortex develops and then you start storing, and no way you could remember something that happened when you were one, let alone when you were born. But I think that what his work shows is that memory exceeds that, and we carry these memories from our own entrance into the world cellularly, or in some sort of virtual realm. But this is something that a lot of people in this world already know, and the Akashic records and past lives of memory is so much bigger than the scientific picture that we currently have of it. And so with the BPMs reflect the birthing process itself into 4 stages, and these they realize correspond with the 4 outer planets.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting. Wait, Saturn included then?
Saturn, yeah.
Okay.
So
Saturn and Jupiter are right next to each other.
Right, not Jupiter. So
I know, but anyway,
there should be Jupiter. There should be Jupiter in this process.
I'm just a traditional purist.
Fair. So basically, Neptune is the womb, where you're in the amniotic sac, and that boundarylessness sort of connection with the mother is very Neptunian. And then sooner or later, you're forced to leave this heavenly blissful place where you're not worried about a thing into the birth canal, which you could imagine if you have a conscious experience would be horrific, terrifying.
Oh yeah,
you go from floating to being squeezed tremendously on every side,
squeezed and suffocated.
Yeah. And that's Saturn, because you're being exiled from heaven into hell.
You can also see it in the physical restriction of it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway.
Exactly. And a lot of if you look into the correlations, it's like when people go through Saturn transits, it's a BPM2 experience. So BPM1, Neptune, BPM2, Saturn, squeeze, constriction, no exit. And then we get to Pluto. And that's that death life struggle of, okay, like leaving, transitioning from this like place of safety into the world. Pluto is like one of the most difficult parts of the birth, because it's like you're done being squeezed, but now you're like fully like on that last push there. And Pluto's associated with the underworld and Pisces, and you know, that's something that happens at that stage. Yeah, it's a thing. And so that's that kind of plutonic death life struggle. And then Uranus is birth. So that's BPM4, Uranus, and that's your awakening, you're in the world, taking your first breath.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love those correspondences too. I feel like it fits the outer planets so well.
Yes.
How do you feel like those planetary relationships like affect not only BPM research, but like your own understanding of those outer planets?
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful question. And I mean, I think I've thought a lot about Saturn recently, having gone through my Saturn return and really feeling that suffocation. And that no exit feeling where you're like, I know that this feeling is not going to last forever, but it has that feeling
be like the
of like
process, yeah.
And it's the longest process, exactly. And I think that that's one thing, as I've been on my astrological journey, that I have developed more appreciation for, is just the length of transits. And you know, because when you're first into it, you're like, okay, Saturn return, 3 years, check, like on to the next. And then when you're in it, you're like, this has really been like a culmination of something that's been happening my whole life in some ways. Like that's the greatness of Saturn, is it's not a 3-year deal. Like it's a forever long deal. Yeah. And like the 7-year cycles. And then you're thinking like, oh, I'm in this Pluto transit, not for 1 year, not for 2 years, for 5 years. And there's, you know, I think that it's very human to be like, when is this going to be over? Which, you know, can cause distress. And I think that was the most distressing thing about my Saturn return, is like I couldn't stop thinking like, when is this going to end? And then the BPM2,
you get a slap with a square every 7 years.
Exactly, yeah, you just keep the fun going.
But BPM2?
Yeah, BPM2 is like that suffocating feeling of like, I want to be out, you know, I want to be back in, but I don't want to be here.
So people who like had those BP2 like kind of trips or experiences would therefore be like going through a Saturn transit?
Exactly. So that's what they noticed as like an indicator of what kind of psychedelic experience someone might have if they were in, you know, like a very significant outer planet transit with Saturn. They might have like a no exit type trip where they're like, I'm freaking out, trapped.
I gotta go back and track some dates.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally.
But have you found any other planets or transits besides outer planet stuff, or including outer planet stuff, to be especially relevant in psychedelic integration?
Yeah, that's something that I was really interested in. Love the outers, but I was thinking, like, when I was studying the material, about the whole chart, the whole picture, which is kind of fun, of what was happening with their ascendant, what's happening with their Venus, and it's really neat to look at the full picture and see some of the things that come through. And I had people give me their stories of what they were experiencing, and it was like really neat to see how that corresponded with their chart. You know, for example, a couple in my study, and they were both in a transit to Venus, and they were having this experience together and like talking about how it affected their view of their love for each other. And so it's neat to see beyond the outers too, that every planet, you know, is speaking in
and
the
like
chart.
Yeah, playing a role in some sort of way, shape, or form.
Exactly.
That's so great. So for you, how does archetypal astrology really differ from predictive astrology?
Yeah, I think that, you know, there are ways that you can do both. Like, you can use archetypal astrology as predictive, but I would say that most archetypal astrologers focus on psychology of the person's, you know, current development and what stage of development they're in and what kind of experiences that might draw forth, rather than, you know, you're probably gonna have a child under your Saturn moon. Yeah, so you can definitely use it that way, but I think that the emphasis is on psychological growth and development for archetypal astrologers.
That's good. I mean, I feel like a main point of like what our ethics presentation was about, and what we just discussed too, is like you need to meet somebody where they're at.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of it. Like, you can't like see Saturn. My cousin got married with Saturn transiting her 7th.
Yeah.
You know, and like that wasn't a death of a partner. That wasn't like the ending of a relationship. And I feel like so often do people jump into those things, but to experience the broad nuances of archetypal astrology and focus on that psychological development already puts you in a place where you're doing that from the get-go. Yeah. Just via the type of astrology that you do.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, you can offer people that range, because, you know, a lot of people are like seeking astrology, so they know what's going to happen. But if you're like, okay, Saturn's through your 7th, Saturn rules death. Saturn also rules commitment because it's like the death of your old life. It's a wedding. So
exactly.
Yeah, giving the range I think is helpful no matter what type of astrology you practice.
Facts. Well said. So what role, I guess, therefore, does synchronicity play in your type of astrology that you practice?
Yeah, so that is massive with archetypal astrology because it developed out of Jung's work, and Jung was the synchronicity guy. And a lot of people in that field do think that astrology is synchronicity of, these events that seem to have nothing to do what's happening, having this connection that is spiritual and meaningful to the person. And I think for people who are in this realm, a lot of people think like synchronicity is a way of knowing that you're on the right track or being confirmed by the universe, or I feel like it's really just this cosmic alignment of your psyche sensing that the inner and the outer are intertwined, merged, or even the same thing in some way. So when you see the synchronicity, you're like, your sense of connection with the world deepens, because you're like, I'm not crazy, I'm not isolated from the universe, because I'm seeing right now that the universe is reflecting me back to myself.
It's like the emerald tablet. It's what is of the above is of the below,
Exactly.
and what is of the below is of the above.
Yes.
They are one and the same.
Yes.
And then, I guess, how would you respond as a skeptic to yourself to skepticism about these archetypes and about these synchronicities?
I like this question. Skeptics. So I think that the first skeptical thought is that people are crazy and off the deep end and unstable, which you do see with people who become very synchronicity obsessed. There's an element of psychosis there. And I think materialists, realists would be, see that as like a spiritual crisis, where someone has like lost touch with reality and, is now psychically tripping in some way. So the skepticism being that there's a lack of reality and presence even, and going off too far in these projections. And then also that there's not meaning to them, which I feel like sometimes, like maybe you even sense this with people and they're like, oh, I saw 1111 again, or it's like...
No, sometimes when people like reach out angel numbers to me, I have to like sometimes, especially during the pandemic, people were like, oh my god, nature is thriving, I saw this rabbit, that's a sign from Hermes or something like that, and I see it all over the internet, and I'd be like, no, nature is thriving because humans aren't out there fucking with it right now.
Right.
Like, you have to have a scientific grounding and understanding that the world around you works in a certain way before you start falling into these psychotic tendencies or these thought processes and these spirals that lead to those psychosis states.
100%. And I do think that there's ways that we can become completely untethered, and that part of the path of as spiritual people, as astrologers, is to really marry the ether with the material, which is very Saturn Neptune, which we're under right now. Saturn being like the reality principle, and then Neptune being the boundless.
No, I feel like there's been like huge moves of like academically qualifying astrology again, and that wasn't a thing since like the 90s when Kepler College was a brief thing. Totally.
There's like a push again to like, let's be rigorous about this, and with the ethics and taking our role. And I think that it's like desperate times call for desperate measures. Desperate times call for desperate measures, in the sense that you can't be off in la la land when our situation necessitates that we're present to what's happening.
No, 100%. Okay, so if somebody were to want to analyze their chart after a trip, what is the first thing that you would suggest them look at?
I think one thing that's really emerged in my work is the power of emotions, and it's made me realize how much of my work as an astrologer is primarily about emotions, because the things that hold the most emotional charge are usually what the mind goes to. And I've really seen this with tarot. Someone can ask a completely different question, but if their emotional state is tied up in a different complex or thing,
it's gonna answer
the card is going to answer that question. Because I've had I have people come in and they're like, I just want to know about work. The full spread is all a relationship deal, and I'm like, but what's going on in your relationship? And they're like, oh, I don't want to talk about it. I'm like, but you do.
Clearly,
you do.
Subconsciously,
you do. Which is just to say, I think that for me, and what I've realized is subjectivity is so important, and not just, developing a system that you apply to every person that you're seeing, but rather hearing, what is the most emergent emotion for you post-experience, and then same if you're looking for yourself, thinking, what emotions do I have towards my experience, what feels like it's still present, and then, to kind of do some some investigation into your chart of, you know, I really did feel a sense of like pervasive optimism. What was happening with Jupiter for me? So kind of working backwards rather than letting the planets tell you how you should have been feeling, more so going in with how was I feeling and where do I see that reflected? And then how does that deepen my knowledge of how that plays into my bigger life story?
No, I think that's an excellent way to go about it. Because not only does it get rid of like kind of astrology bias, but sometimes you'll like see, say for example, Venus was conjoining Saturn at that time, the same time that they were feeling those abundant optimism, you know?
Yes.
So you're like, oh, well, Jupiter's transiting their 12th, for example, or something like that. So, like, maybe not that, but, like, this Venus-Saturn conjunction, like, did you feel, like, restricted in your love life, or, like, you needed to set certain boundaries with your relationships or dynamics, or, like, XYZ, and then it's like, no, not at all.
Exactly.
And then that client feels obligated also to respond in a way that kind of, like, solidifies that, or at least I've noticed.
Yeah.
So having that more questions first, astrology second approach, beautiful.
And I think that's helped me as an astrologer too. I think when I first started, I was a little bit more like, is this happening? Is this happening? Is this happening? And now I try to really listen of like, and hear what's happening, and then use the chart to understand it on a deeper level.
Do you ever feel like there's some sort of transit that kind of like mirrors that deeply transformative aspect that a trip could bring without a trip being present?
You mean like a Neptune transit?
Yeah.
Or I mean, if you've ever had Neptune conjunct your ascendant, I haven't. I don't think I ever will.
I had it very early in my life.
Did you? So you were tripping young.
I guess. Well, it does actually coincide with the time in my life that I like, because I grew up Lutheran, so I like got really into Lutheranism.
Yeah.
When I was like 7, 8 to 9, I want to say, and I was reading all of these texts, and I came across Martin Luther's 95 Theses, and one of the first things that motherfucker says is, "Don't make a religion out of me, fix Catholicism." And I was like, "Why are we Lutheran?"
Yeah.
And nobody could answer me.
Yeah.
And that opened up a world to like. I just started diving into like different philosophies, to be honest with you, and then I found like spiritualism. Well, I really coincided with Hindu and Buddhist practices and more Eastern culture, and then in doing that, I found astrology and was like, the nakshatras, the lunar mansions, they got something to say about life.
Yes, the doors were opened.
But yeah, I don't know, was curious if Neptune ascendant you'd say would probably be like the most major or one of.
Neptune anything. I think ascendant just feels very personal.
I feel like conjunct the angles would be a nice slap in the face regardless.
Any angular Neptune or even like Neptune to Saturn or something that typically is holding the structure, Neptune comes in and it's like, okay, we're tripping now.
Yeah. Do you feel like with the Neptune-Saturn conjunction that we've mundanely had, that the world is now
Yes,
tripping?
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you can tell when you talk to people, they're like, I don't know what's happening. I have no idea what's happening. And the kind of the general malaise that comes with it, I think, is the shadow of tripping, right? Because you're like, I'm out of touch or I'm having a spiritual awakening, either one.
How has your own philosophy changed through this research?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's changed so much, which is like a great life lesson because, you know, I don't know if this is everyone, but it's me, and you kind of walk around and you're like, I know what I think. And then it's like the more the further you go, the more you're like, oh, that's embarrassing that I was so confident before, because now I think something totally different.
Yeah.
And it gives me fear of the future because I'm like, wow, what if in 5 years I think something totally different than I do now?
I think that's the beauty of learning, though, and evolving.
I just feel like there's always something that you can grow with, something that you can learn to change not only your like foundational beliefs, like, because that sometimes is a little bit more of a slower process, but I feel like there's always some small little things that will change like influence or like how you approach things.
Yeah.
Like I remember when I first started consulting astrology, I was not ethical in any way, shape, or form, you know?
Yeah.
But I was also in high school.
Right.
And I didn't really like have a better, deeper understanding of what astrology was capable of. So.
Well, and I, you know, as much as I love ethics, I also have some like belief and faith and confidence that things happen as they're meant to, and if you told somebody something disturbing, maybe it strengthened their character in some way, and that was what they needed to hear at the time, even though it was like not maybe in alignment.
No, I get you. There's I believe that fate and free will are hand in hand, like you cannot separate the two. So it is ultimately up to the astrologer and how they phrase it, yes, but also the client and how they interpret it and how they proactively go about that information and what they do with it.
And that really is what we're talking about is such a huge part of my work in terms of integration, because I think that our lives are emanations of our understanding and our thoughts and our beliefs about ourselves. And so how you make sense of your experiences, how they shape you moving forward, what beliefs you carry in relation to your past, all of that has a role in creating your future. And so when people are doing this kind of self-exploration and self-work, I think beliefs are really the leading factor. And if you want to change yourself, you have to change your belief. And like, that is the free will that we have, is, you know, what beliefs we carry.
No, 100%. Well, if somebody wanted to get more educated on not only your own personal philosophies, but also just the subject matter at broad, are there any books or authors that you would recommend?
Yeah, I mean, anything by Stan Grof, like, he's done the most work, and it's just fantastic, all of his lived experience, because I mean, that's one thing, it's like, you know, he's seen thousands and thousands of clients, and that's not replicable with thought. So anything by Stan Grof, The Cosmic Game, there's a lot of amazing works by Rick Tarnas. Actually, the Archive Journal, have you heard of the Archive Journal? Yeah. Any edition of the Archive Journal, I would say, is like right in this realm. And then Becca's work too. Amazing stuff.
Hell yeah. What is one idea that you hope every attendee at the meetup will leave thinking about differently?
Maybe just inspiration towards mystery of, there's so much that we still don't understand about consciousness. And that as astrologers, we do have some secrets that give us windows into what's going on with the human experience and what's going on with this time and development of human consciousness that we're in. What keys do we hold as astrologers into that, and then, you know, how might that change the work that we do?
Well, and what paths can that unlock for other people, including ourselves?
Exactly. So good.
Well, because we're all forever students.
So good, yeah.
And sometimes we hold the keys, but we'll unlock it for other people, but not unlock it for ourselves and our own understanding of like our own charts.
You're speaking my soul right now.
I just am super guilty of doing that. Now, if you could leave listeners with one takeaway about astrology's role in understanding human consciousness, what would it be?
Ooh, I think that, you know, when you show someone a birth chart, that doesn't know astrology, they're like, this means literally nothing to me. Gibberish, symbols. And I think that is base level our template of experience itself. There's all these random symbols that inherently maybe they don't mean anything, but we learn. We learn to associate words and images and history and memory with signs. And as astrologers, we have these very rich histories with planets, and you have all these different Venus experiences that are in your trove and your arsenal, even when helping other people. And I think that as astrologers, it's like we can do the same thing with our lives and our symbolic interpretation. And there's a merging of our archetypal understanding and the richness with which we can treat every symbol in our lives. And there's definitely an enchanting feeling about that, of like, your life can become richer because of the meaning that you can see in all of the objects and symbols and people around you. And that you can do that for other people who maybe feel disenchanted or bored or
That is so beautifully said too. Because, like, sometimes, you know, as an astrologer, you look at a chart so often that you kind of forget what it's like to look at a chart for the first time. And to kind of apply that the whole world is kind of like looking at a chart for the first time.
Yes.
Is a little overwhelming. Well, thank you so much for not only sharing your incredible studies throughout your own dissertation writing, but for just being here, being present, and being a part of the community. It means a lot that Denver has such an amazing astrologer such as you.
Oh, thank you.
You want to let the people know where to find you at?
Yes, Kate. I'm Kate, in case you missed it. Yeah, find me at Kate. ChronosAstrology.com is my website and my main place, and Instagram, and
all under the same name?
Every social media, yeah, Kronos Astrology.
Okay. It'll all be linked down in the show notes below. And if you are local to the Denver area, consider checking Kate's presentation out on July 9th at Ritualcraft.
Yes. And if you have experiences, stories, and you want to chat about them, of psychedelic experiences you have, or ways that you've seen it with your transits, I would love to hear.
Harass Kate!
Yes,
please.
Please.
All right, well, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time.